Hello there, dear friends. Kalidas here to offer some astrological thoughts for the day here in February 17th, 2023. So, we each have an inner nervous system, which is centered in the spine and in the nerve ganglia at each chakra. And these centers we call chakras, these are correlating to what we know as the planetary bodies of light that swirl around the zodiac and create different combinations of energy through which we can work through our karma. But there's one very interesting point here in the anatomy, and it's in the back of the brain, and it's where the moon, the planet, the moon, is centered. And as we know, the moon and sun function together, and the sun is located here in the spiritual eye. But this back part is what Yogananda called the mouth of God. And that's what I'd like to address now is how the ego, the moon, because the sun is like the soul, it's you and your highest self. But how can the moon, you, whatever your name is, become a mouth of God? If you look at the way the sun and the moon work, it's been told to us that at least the sun is what illuminates the moon. So there's a clue. How can you function as a mouth of God? You offer yourself. That's probably the most important thing, even if you don't have a meditation practice or training, is you offer yourself. Make me an instrument. I offer myself to you. And with this spirit of self-offering, this medulla loosens, and energy is able to contact and gain insight from the frontal cortex of the brain, where there is intuitive faculties and amazing insights waiting for every human being there in the spiritual eye. But the mouth of God can only be such if we're inviting spirit to move through us. If we're doing it as a separated ego, here, let me talk to you, I'll give you a spiritual lecture, then there will be a Ketu and a Rahu disturbing the consciousness, and they will speak from egoity or from memorization or for whatever they've rehearsed. That would be Ketu. Ketu is our past, it's our memories of the past, and it's our habits of the past. It's not easy to change. Let me read to you something about Ketu that I have written here in my journal. And it's something very important for each of us to really hear about depression. Why is it that we get depressed in our lives? And why is it that this medulla, which Yogananda calls the mouth of God, why can't it speak? Why can't it speak as the mouth of God? Well, here's one reason. Ketu, the energy of our past and memories, it gets us stuck and depressed. And to overcome depression, we should use our free time to progress towards our goals. And that would be Rahu. So if we're too much in Ketu, we need to go towards Rahu, which is the progression towards some future ideal or goal. And everyone was born with a Ketu. And that makes objectivity and unbiased extremely rare in this world. I'll say that again. Everyone was born with a Ketu, and that makes unbiasedness and objectivity an impossibility for most people. They're always biased by what they've seen and experienced, in other words, and so they'll never be able to come as the mouth of God in this moment and perceive something as God does. They're flawed by their memory of the past. This is one of the reasons why in meditation we need to make our minds present and forget the past. And also not worry about the future. We'll get to that. But both of these energies are what block the mouth of God from speaking through your moon nature, through your ego, and actually becoming that person you've always wanted to be. You can see it. You can see what you could become, but you won't. You won't do it unless you invite Spirit to do it through you, unless you offer yourself to Spirit. And that means your Ketu and Rahu you're letting go of. That's your past and your future attachments and memories. And you're just being here now. Everyone goes to Ketu first, but if they don't get Rahu's message by the age of 45, and this has to do with certain cycles of the planets, it has to do with Rahu and Ketu's cycle. If you don't get to Rahu, your new expansive direction by age 45, then deep depression begins to set in. And we see this, it's a epidemic, you could call it, in American culture at least, the midlife crisis. The what have I done with my life that matters? And it's Rahu. That's what you need, is to find that in your chart and go towards it. And most people are scared of it because it makes them look a little unstable or imperfect. But this is the way to expand, is to not be scared of your lessons, and most of all to ask for God's help. Do this through me, Spirit. I cannot be a mouth of God unless I'm fully present and I've released my past and my attachments there and my future and my harassments there. So depression is inevitable if we don't end up in our Rahu by the time we're 45, and that's an astrological law. The goal can never be to do a whole lot more of what we've already done. That's Ketu's message. You can't just go to what's familiar and keep doing it over and over. It's a recipe for self-destruction. The soul, being ever new joy, seeks ever new experiences. And in these ever new experiences is where we find our own ability to function as a mouth of God. In a new experience, we don't have, we can try to bring who we've always been into it, but it will pollute it. A new situation and a new experience will have new insights and lessons for you, and it's likely you're probably magnetizing whatever scenarios in your life with your Rahu, not with your Ketu. Because the way of life is forward movement, evolution, and growth. So we are attracting the circumstances that are triggering our need for Rahu growth, for forward movement in our direction of instability, if that makes sense. And none of us can do this. So it's a humiliating world. And if we can get God's help, if we can say, I can't do this, but you are infinite. Look at this beautiful universe you surround us with. It's so orderly, and it's existed longer than we know in this orderly way. So Divine Mother, Heavenly Father, they must know a lot more than we do. How can we be mouths of God? The medulla is the moon center, but the moon is reflective, right? So we want to have God's wisdom and presence and love shine on us during our daily meditation and surrender the invaders, the satanic serpentine force of Rahu Ketu, which is ultimately considered a demonic force in mythology named Vasuki. And this was an evil serpent who drank the immortal nectar of the gods without permission and was sliced in half by Vishnu's disc. His head actually was cut off. And so Rahu is a head without a body. That's anxiety, that's too much thinking, that's too much going on upstairs here. And it makes for a lunatic, too much energy in Luna. If we're all concerned about our future, we'll become crazy eventually. We have to learn faith and relaxation. So lunatics are those who carry way too much anxiety and zero faith in a benevolent creator. And lastly, I'll just say that in order for us to come into this present moment, We need to enjoy it. There's no way that we'll be able to surrender to this present moment magic as an instrument of love unless we ourselves are affirming these qualities of love and joy. And this is where the self-offering comes in. Every day when we meditate, it's very beneficial to say, make me an instrument for you. As Yogananda's prayer says, let every sound that I make carry the vibration of thy voice. Let every thought that I think be saturated with the consciousness of thy presence. Remember, that's right now. It's not in the future or in the past. And let my every feeling glow with thy love. O divine sculptor, chisel thou my life according to thy design. This is a great prayer to become more of a mouth of God. And I'll tell you, there's nothing more thrilling and fulfilling in this life than learning about how you can be an instrument for the divine to uplift and bless the lives of others. This is the way to a fulfilling life. And to think too much about oneself puts us back in the medulla with our blockage of Rahu and Ketu, and what happens then? We can no longer be a mouth of God. Instead, we're a mouth of the self, the little self. And that's what we hear squawking all around creation these days, isn't it? Even in our leadership in the world, it's totally full of those medulla squawkers. And let's just say, if you don't want to be one, if you'd rather be the mouth of God, then learn to feel his presence by affirming the state of love, of joy, and of faith, that there is a purpose to this time we're in. The planet is in transition, big changes are happening, and there's a lot of catastrophic things going on in the world. So wouldn't you rather be an instrument for the light than to commiserate with the masses about all the darkness? Because that doesn't do anything about it, but being an instrument for the light, one by one, action by action, soul by soul, moment by moment, we are able to make a difference. O divine sculptor, chisel thou my life according to thy design. Jai Ma, thank you for listening today. It's been a joy to share these things, which I'm working on too.